Good morning, Guide and Rising Stars. It has been a long time since you've gotten to hear a chapter of Gregor. I thought I might read a chapter last week, but I got very busy doing things at home. So we are back with Gregor the Overlander. We have read chapters 1 through 20. Look at this. We are almost done with this book. We're on chapter 21 already. And I'm looking to see how many chapters there are. Looks like there are 26 chapters. Nope, 27. 27 chapters, which means we're going to be done with the book next week. We'll have to pick a new book to read. But if you remember, when we left Gregor, there were some spiders that came, that the gnars had attacked the webs of the spinners, and one of the spinners died right at the end of the chapter. Every time we read a chapter, this leaves us with a cliffhanger. So let's see what happens in chapter 21, because this is, I don't even know what to say. This is an exciting book. But remember, in the prophecy, they said that there was going to be a spider that went along with them, one of the spinners, or two of the spinners, and they hadn't convinced any of them to come, and now one of them is dead. So we are on chapter 21 of Gregor the Overlander by Suzanne Collins. Chapter 21. Gregor looked at the spider in shock. In its final moments, it had rolled onto its back and curled up its legs. Blue liquid seeped out of a wound in its belly, staining the stone floor. "So we're all here," said Gregor softly. "What do you mean?" asked Henry. Gregor pulled the prophecy from his pocket. Sandwich was right. "We're all here together. At least we were for a few seconds." He read aloud. 2 over, 2 under, of royal descent. 2 flyers, 2 crawlers, 2 spinners ascent. 1 gnar beside, and 1 lost up ahead. He couldn't bring himself to say the next line, but Rip Red could. "And 8 will be left when we count up the dead." "Well, 1 down and 3 to go," said Rip Red, poking the spider with the end of his tail. "Stop it," said Gregor. "Oh, what? We can't pretend that any of us was very attached to this spinner. We don't even know its name, except maybe you," Rip Red said to the orange spider. "Treflex," said the orange spider. "I am she called Gox." "Well, Gox, I suppose you're hungry after your journey, but our food is limited. None of us will think less of you if you'd like to dine on Treflex," said Rip Red. Gox immediately began to pump juice into Treflex. "She's not going to." "Oh, man," said Gregor. "Spiders are neither squeamish nor sentimental," said Rip Red. "Thank goodness for that." Gregor turned away, so neither he nor Boots had to watch the cannibalism. He was glad to see that Henry and Luxa looked a little green, too. "Look, if anything happens to me or Boots, don't let that spinner drink us. Toss us off the cliff, in a river, anything, okay?" They both nodded. "You will return the same favor for us?" said Luxa wanly. "And our bats?" "And Tick and Temp, too, I promise," said Gregor. He could hear the slow sucking sounds as Gox drained Treflex's body. "Geez," he added. Fortunately, it didn't take Gox long to eat. Rip Red began to grill her about the rat attack. She told him an entire army, several hundred rats at least, had invaded the land of the spiders. The spiders had held them off, but many had died on both sides before the rats had finally retreated. Vicus had come by after the carnage and had sent Gox and Treflex on his bat to the tunnel entrance. "Why?" asked Gox. "Why do the gnars kill us?" "I don't know. It may be that King Gorger has launched a total Underland attack, or it may be caught wind of the 2 Overlanders heading toward our land. Did they mention the warrior of the prophecy of Grey?" asked Rip Red. "There were no words, only death," said Gox. "It is quite fortunate that you found us." It would have taken you much time to free 2 spinners from King Gorger's prisons unnoticed, and we have no time to waste, said Rip Red to Gox. He turned to Gregor. This attack on the spinners does not bode well for your father. What? What? Why? What? Why not? Asked Gregor, feeling his insides go icy. Vicus has done a remarkable job of concealing you. No rat save me has seen you and lived to tell of it. The rats do not know the warrior has arrived. But the fact that humans have brought overlanders to the spinners will make them suspicious, said Rip Red. The wheels seemed to be visibly turning in his head. Still, there is much confusion in war, and no rat has identified you. We move on now. No one argued. They packed up and headed out the far side of the cavern into a drier, roomier tunnel. Aurora and Ares were able to fly now, although the space was dangerous for riders. We shall go on foot, Luxa told Aurora. Even if you carry the rest of us, what will be done with the gnar? So the bats took to the air with the remaining packs. Gregor watched them enviously. Luckily, I'm not a bat. I might just fly out of here and not look back. Aurora and Ares would never do that. They are bonded to myself and Henry, said Luxa. How does that work exactly? Asked Gregor. When a bat and a human bond, they swear to fight to the death for each other, said Luxa. Aurora would never leave me in danger, nor I her. Does everyone have a bat? Asked Gregor, thinking it would be nice to know somebody was going to hang around and defend you in this place. Oh, no. Some never find a bat to bond with. I became one with Aurora when I was quite young, but this is not common, said Luxa. How come you bonded so early? Asked Gregor. After my parents were killed, I went through a time when I never felt safe on the ground. I spent all my waking hours in the air on Aurora. It is why we fly so well together, she said simply. Vicus convinced the council to allow us to bond early. After that, I was not so afraid. Are you afraid now? Said Gregor. At times, she admitted, but it is no worse than if I were in regalia. You see, I tired of constant fear, so I made a decision. Every day when I wake, I tell myself that it will be my last. If you are not trying to hold on to time, you are not so afraid of losing it. Gregor thought this was the single saddest thing anyone had ever said to him. He couldn't answer. And then if you make it to bedtime, you feel the joy of cheating death out of one more day, she said. Do you see? I think so, said Gregor numbly. An awful thought struck him. Wasn't Luxa's strategy just an extreme form of his own rule? True, he didn't think about dying every day, but he denied himself the luxury of thinking about the future with or without his dad. If he hadn't fallen through the grate in his laundry room and discovered his dad was still alive, if his dad had never come home, how long would he have gone on refusing to be happy? His whole life? Maybe, he thought, maybe my whole life. Gregor hurried on with the conversation. So, how do you actually bond with a bat? He asked Luxa. It is a simple ceremony. Many bats and humans gather. You stand face to face with your bat and say a vow, like so, Luxa said, extending her hand and reciting a poem. Aurora the flyer, I bond to you. Our life and death are one, we two. In dark, in flame, in war, in strife, I save you as I save my life. And then your bat recites it back, but using your name. Then there is a feast, concluded Luxa. So what happens if one of you breaks the vow? Like if Aurora flew off and left you in danger, asked Gregor. Aurora would not, but a few vows have been broken. The punishment is severe. The one at fault is banished to live alone in the Underland, said Luxa, and no one lives long in the Underland alone. Fascinating as your native rituals are, do you think we might proceed in silence, given that the entire rat nation is on the lookout for us? It might be prudent, said Rip Red. Luxa and Gregor shut up. Gregor wished they could talk more. Luxa acted differently when she wasn't with Henry. Friendlier, less arrogant, but Rip-Red was right about the noise. Fortunately, Boots dozed off. For several hours, all they heard were the light tap of their footsteps and the scraping sound of Rip-Red's teeth on a bone he'd saved from lunch. Gregor felt consumed with new worries about his dad. From what Rip-Red had said, it seemed like the rats might kill him to keep Gregor from reaching him. But why? That wouldn't change the prophecy, would it? He guessed no one really knew. And what about that last stanza? He unrolled the prophecy and read it so many times he memorized it without trying. The last who will die must decide where he stands. The fate of the 8 is contained in his hands. So bid him take care, bid him look where he leaps, as life may be death, and death life again reaps. He couldn't make head nor tails of it. All he could figure out was that whoever died fourth had a pretty big responsibility to the 8 who were still living. But how? What? Where? When? The final stanza of the Prophecy of Grey left out all the details that would have made it useful. Rip-Red kept them moving until everyone was stumbling with fatigue. He gave the order to stop in a cavern that at least had a dry floor and a spring with drinking water. Gregor and Luxa passed around their dwindling food, which was disappearing much faster than he had anticipated. He tried to object when the roaches gave their food to Boots, thinking he would share his own. "Let them feed her," said Rip-Red. "A crawler can live a month with no food if it has water. And don't bother feeding Gox. Traflex will hold her for longer than our journey will last." The cavern was cold. Gregor stripped off Boots' damp clothes and put on a fresh set. Something was wrong with her. She seemed too quiet, and her skin was clammy and cold. He curled up under the blanket with her, trying to warm her up. What would he do if she got sick? They needed to be home with his mom, who always knew just the combination of juice and medicine and pillows to make it all right. He tried to console himself with the idea that his dad could help when they found him. Everyone was so tired from their trek that they fell asleep immediately. Something woke Gregor from a heavy sleep. A sound? A movement? He wasn't sure. All he knew was that when he opened his eyes, Henry was standing over Rip-Red, ready to plunge a sword into the sleeping rat's back. That's where they leave us at the end of the chapter? Henry is going to kill Rip-Red? I thought Rip-Red was the only one that could get them through the tunnels. What craziness is this? I don't understand how they leave the chapter like this, but we'll have to wait until tomorrow to find out what happens. I'll see you next time when we read more of Gregor the Overlander. Have a good day.